At the time of making this video, EU5 has 50 achievements, and I'll be honest, Paradox has been way too nice. I mean, for a company that would do achievements like 3 mountains in EU4, or the Gambling Addict one in Stellaris, or even forcing you to build 10 carriers and 10 battleships as Columbia, well, I would have assumed that they would have been quite cruel in EU5 as well. Alas, they decided to be merciful, so instead, well, if you consider yourself a real EU5 gamering pro and want some genuinely insane challenges, well, I have 10 for you today. I've attempted to go with the Paradox style of achievement challenges, that is to say, puns and references, and I've ordered them from least impossible to most impossible, so my difficulty to be clear. Now, before we get into the list, just a quick bit stop to say, a like would be appreciated as always, and a subscription would be amazing if you haven't already. The 100k sub goal is an ambitious one, as I've frequently mentioned, but well, I do believe. Finally, if you're interested in grabbing EU5 or anything else in the Paradox store, please do use code Lemon Cake for a 0% discount. It does help support the channel. But with that said, enough self-shilling, let's get into the video proper. And we start today with perhaps the easiest, well, technically easiest on this list. We have City of Spires, starting as the canton of Uri, build Aldorf into a city and make it the capital of the Holy Roman Empire, aka become the emperor. Now, what are we working with here today? Well, we are a unique location miner with 11,500 pops and 300 odd soldiers. In terms of our content, we actually have some unique bonuses. The one that stands out to me the most is that Tier 1 we get the Eternal Alliance of the Forest Cantons. I previously mentioned this, but I consider it quite an advantage with 0.1 monthly diplomats you grab in the first age, meaning that you can afford to not pay for your diplomats a lot earlier. That being said though, you're going to have a very hard time ahead of you. You start as a republic, so you need to get rid of that to actually become a monarchy and become elected as the emperor, which is going to be even easier said than done because the empire is going to get eaten by Bohemia and Austria and everyone else around you, so you're certainly on a timer. But where's the reference of this? Well, if you have played Warhammer Fantasy or are familiar with the lore, you might know that the great city, the capital of the humans, is the city of Aldorf, which is, funnily enough, the name of our province, Altdorf. So yeah, it is a livestock backwater random village inside of a mountain on a forest, so it's about as backwater it gets, but hey, it's next to a lake, so you can build some irrigation, and using that, and hence the reference, that's the goal. You need to build this up into a city, become the emperor, easier said than done, and make it the imperial capital. Difficult? Absolutely. The opening is going to be brutal. You're going to have to do HRE shenanigans and diplomacy in the Holy Roman Empire while doing conquests within it, so people aren't going to be very happy, and you have to do so while fighting off significantly stronger powers around you, but I guess at least in theory possible. That being said, you have a terrible economy, you don't really have an army, it's going to be a tough fight, and hey, it isn't too much of a grind at the end. And for that reason, that is the 10th and hence technically easiest achievement on our list. And with that, we move on to slot number 9. Traitor of the Revolution. Starting as Dip Marchen, obtain the Peasant Republic reform while having 100 progress to capital economy, serfdom, and absolutism. Now, this is a difficult run for many reasons. First of all, Dipmartian is not an easy open. You start as a subject of Bremen, and most of the time that's the end of your campaign, you get annexed. Now, the Peasant Republic reform and this area can be quite powerful and interesting thing to play around, but you have to do this while pushing a lot of values in the opposite direction. To get to 100% serfdom from free subjects, well, good luck with that, especially with the Peasant Republic reform giving you progress towards free subjects, I believe. Also, getting 100 capital economy with all this push towards traditional economy is going to be painful, but best of luck with that. And you're going to have to play into the age of absolutism to unlock absolutism and go full absolutism while having, again, Peasant Republic. So, ouch. Not the easiest run. To be clear, this is the Peasant Republic reform, which to be fair only makes free subjects harder to push, but you can probably see the setting of this campaign, to go for the quote-unquote communist country and betray it in embracing and becoming hyper-capitalistic during the whole process. Certainly a challenge, but certainly a doable one as well. Again, the main difficulty comes from the fact that you are a subject of Bremen and end most campaigns being annexed by Bremen. And even if you do obtain independence, well, not the easiest campaign from this point onwards. Still though, quite playable. It's just more so they have to reject your own nature and push against your own values that your government wants you to adopt. And that's kind of the extra sprinkle on top of this achievement. Still though, Dipmartian is a fun country, and if that's the motivation you need to give it a go, there you have it. But yeah, that will conclude the 9th spot on our list, and we move on to the 8th spot. For in the 8th spot, our achievement is going to be the Mountain Navy. As Tibet, become a naval hegemon. Challenge-wise, I mean, I want to say it's pretty self-explanatory. Tibet is not the richest nation out there, and a lot of the people, especially to your south, to India, are going to put up quite a bit of a fight if you're trying to conquer into them and actually get to the coast to be able to build a navy. then you're going to have to accept them and go through that whole process or culture convert or whatever you end up doing just to be able to actually get sailors and start building up a navy at a time when other nations like France are going to be blobbing and building up their navy, so you're going to have a harder time competing for that naval hegemon. That being said, you certainly have options, and at least with Tibet, you're relatively safe. You're also making quite a bit of money from payments from the Great Yuan, so you have that going for you. But it also does mean that if you can't really push into India and you decide to go the other way, well, yeah, that's not happening. You're going to have a hard time trying to get this navy up. Certainly a bit of an ironic meme, dare I say, with this campaign. And while you do have a lot more pops and even more troops than usual, that by no means makes it an easy campaign. Still though, if you haven't played Tibet and want to give it a go, worth having a bit of a whack goal in the process, a Tibetan naval dream is certainly one of them. So good luck with that. That being said though, if you're looking for a more conquest-focused achievement, or at least a wacky conquest achievement, with a country that is quite unique, has a bunch of stuff going for it, but isn't necessarily that strong, well, wait no further than our next achievement. Because at number 7, we have This Isn't Filistine. Starting as the Knights completely control the region of the Philippines, that is Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Now, what is this referencing? Well, the Knights Hospitaller, naturally as you may know, are ex-Crusaders that are coming from the Holy Land, the area known as the Levant, part of which has the province of Filistine, right? Well, Philistine also sounds relatively similar to another area, the Philippines, which are not actually an area. If you take a look at the province map mode or the areas map mode, as you can see, there are 3 areas which are previously mentioned. So yes, that is the campaign, playing as the Knights Hospitaller, do whatever you need, but end up in control, fully in control of the Philippines. A bit of a wacky campaign, certainly a more naval one, and a bit more of an unusual conquest campaign. You have to blob, but you have to get to a rather unusual area. But I hope you can at least see where I'm going with this one. You have a plethora of bonuses, some pretty cool stuff in here, so yeah, go ahead and enjoy that. The Knights are quite a fun campaign, to be fully clear. And I don't see that much gaming taking place in the Philippines, which is a shame, and if this is something you are interested in, certainly do give it a go. All things considered, the night start isn't that difficult, you have options, but it's certainly not an easy one as well, giving you an entertaining early game that transitions into an interesting middle and late game as you try to make your way over to the Philippines. Again, though, certainly going to be a challenge. Trying to get out of the Mediterranean means that if you are trying to go through the Suez, you're going through the Mamluks, good luck with that. And trying to get out through here, well, Castile and Spain tend to be a big boy, so not an easy push either. So for all those reasons, this achievement has earned the 7th spot. But let's say you want an even more difficult open, and you want to go to an area even more remote. Well, I've got you with the next achievement. New Wales. Starting as Wales, completely own New Zealand. Now, New Zealand is certainly up there for one of the most remote places you can go to. It is very far away. And Wales is, on its own, quite an interesting campaign, because the opening is, shall we say, at least mildly challenging. Best of luck with that. So once you overcome those challenges, not only is your campaign quote-unquote complete, or you have to establish your power base and get ready for a colonial empire, with one very specific goal in mind, New Zealand. A very far away goal, but an interesting goal nevertheless. So, again, giving you an interesting thing to do in the early game, as well as a reason to play late. In my opinion, though, Wales is just a much harder start to have than the Knights. England is quite a powerful nation, and it is going to come around and start integrating you pretty soon. So that is something to bear in mind. You're not going to have an easy time trying to get independence. Still, though, you actually have some options. At least 3 ducats of income, as well as an army of almost 2,000 men, means you have at least something to work with, and that's more than can be said for a lot of other nations on this list. You also have a bit of a window to build up and get ready, because England will be busy dealing with France early on, so you have some time to act before your inevitable annexation, although I wouldn't get too complacent. Still though, if you're not a fan of colonization and are still looking for a difficult open with a blobbing campaign and a historical twist for the funsies, look no further than the 5th achievement. Natural Norman borders. As Normandy, retake all territories ever held by the Normans, and for this I provided a helpful map. Now, of course, this is not at the same time chronologically, this all is different, and some areas are certainly, shall we say, non-directly held by the Normans, so they were held by England, for example, if we're taking a look at some of the French lands here. But it's quite a difficult campaign. Not only is Normandy not the easiest open because you are a subject of France, well, you have a lot of land to conquer up ahead of you. You have to take a very decent chunk of France, a very decent chunk of England, which you can certainly use as your power base, but if you're doing that, you've probably weakened France, so I'm assuming it's going to be a strong Spain, meaning you have to campaign your way down into Aragon to grab that province, as well as into the Canaries, because of course you do, before launching an expedition into Naples, Sicily, and Tunis, and I guess you can use those as your staging grounds before you go ahead and fight whatever power has won Anatolia, most likely the Ottomans, as you need to go ahead and secure yourself that Principality of Ankara. That's my best guess. After which, of course, go ahead and grab Cyprus and then campaign into the Holy Land. So yeah, best of luck with that. Oh, and while you are doing all of that, make sure you don't forget those really random Greek islands, which I guess are part of Naples at this point, but oh, no, they're not. They are a subject of Achaia. Fair enough. Which I guess is a subject of Naples, so I was right the whole time. Let's go. A difficult start, and dare I say a campaign that stays difficult, because wherever you have to go, you encounter powerful enemies. Castile and Morocco can put up a fight. So can Naples and Tunis, and usually so can the Ottomans in Anatolia, and certainly so can the Mamluks. Cyprus, I guess, less so. But alright, we've been focusing a lot into the England area and Northern Europe, shall we say. Let's look a bit further out afield, and for that we have the fourth achievement. Legacy of Palmyra. Starting as the Sheikdom of Al-Fadl, obtain the Empire rank without moving your capital from Tadmur, aka Palmyra, at any point. Now, for those unaware, Palmyra is one of the more legendary things from Roman history. Make sure to give it a read, it's quite a fascinating story, especially with the Queen of Palmyra, certainly one of the characters of all time. However, Palmyra at this point, in 1337, is certainly not a fancy place at all, reduced to a rural settlement with a demography of just over 10,000 people. Well, it is, at the end of the day though, still your capital, and while your nation isn't the best out there, just about 3 ducats of income, you're a subject of the Mamluks, so good luck surviving. And not only that, well, you have less than 1,000 troops, and you have to keep your capital in Tadmur, building it up, as the cornerstone and empire that you are trying to, well, build up. The goal though is empire rank, so best of luck with that. And it's more so a not just beat the Mamluks and obtain independence, but actually beat them and thrive, building up a true Palmyran empire. Now, what shape this Palmyran empire takes up is up to you. But yeah, certainly I do believe it's a good enough reason to be placing them in the 4th spot for the difficulty. Also a quite interesting province in general because, yes, it's a flatland, but it is a desert. So yeah, that's neat, but it's a cold, arid desert. So you can actually get winter in this desert, and that's not the most common thing out there, which is neat. But yeah, this is actually also accurate. It's a desert that it just snows in sometimes, which is neat. Still though, this kind of campaign not only will involve a lot of painful early independence wars, it's going to involve quite a bit of conquest to get to that empire rank at the end. If though you are looking for something a bit more diplomatic, although yeah, again, we're getting to the top 3 now, it's going to be brutal, well, stick around for the next achievement. Because at spot number 3, we have True Heir of Andorra. Starting as Andorra, have the Kingdom of France and the Kingdom of Spain as junior partners in a union you are the senior leader of. Alright, so what is going on? What is the Prince Bishopric of Andorra? Well, for those unaware, this is actually a state that exists, yep, in this province, to the modern day. And one of the interesting things with the state is that it's co-ruled by 2 princes, one of which is the President of France. Yes, if you become the President of France, you take the title Prince of Andorra. The others is a bishopric within Spain, and at some point, I'm not sure how to communicate this and I may be wrong, but in essence, basically became part of Spain as part of that. So the challenge is in essence a reversal of that. Play as Andorra, and you need to go ahead and make sure you are the senior partner, so you have to be the bigger boy in both the Castilian and French union. So you have to shove them into a union somehow and then get involved in that union yourself. Easier said than done, and also become big enough to be their senior leader. Also, notice I said you have to get Spain into a union. Well, you have to, through your shenanigans while playing the game, make sure Spain actually forms so that you can union them yourself. Certainly not a trivial task, but that's going to involve you manipulating France into, shall we say, losing some conflicts and wars so they're small enough to become unionists, but also small enough so they don't stop the formation of Spain. And then once this Spain has actually formed, well, only then can you actually go into Spain, union them and make them both France and Spain your junior partners. Yep, quite a bit of a challenge. Best of luck with that, and you don't have a lot of things going for you to get it to happen. You do have some country bonuses, of course, but you have less than a ducat of income and an army of 124 guys. So yeah, ouch. Still though, this is the 3rd most difficult achievement on our list. It does somehow get worse. Simply put, yes, it's a conquest challenge, but at least you're starting in the right area. For the next one though, on our number 2 spot, we have an achievement very inspired by EU4, shall we say, but not as simple as the EU4 one, although the EU4 one was quite brutal. See, at number 2, we have the Unlikeliest Candidate, as Urgla Restore Al-Andalus. Alright, so for those unaware, from EU4, there was an achievement called the Unlikely Candidate, letting you play as any of the nations between Mazab, Togout, or Jerid, and as one of those three, you had to go ahead and restore Al-Andalus. Well, now in 1337, we also have the nation of Urgla, which starts the game as a tributary of Zab. So yeah, not the best state to be in, especially with an economy of 0.2, and well, at least an army of 500 odd guys, so you have that going for you. Hey, you have somewhat of an army. Best of luck with that, not an easy state to be in. I guess at least the absence of a nobility estate means that you have some crown power, so that's neat. But yeah, best of luck. It's quite the campaign out there, and your goal is relatively simple: restore Al-Andalus. So super early game, you're going to be weaker than your neighbors, but okay, let's say you unite your neighbors and you've conquered this area. Well, now, after you've done that, you're weaker than Tunis. But let's say you've conquered Tunis, you've even conquered Clemens, and you've got all of this area, you've basically got, all of this land united and integrated. Well, congratulations, you're still weaker than Morocco. But then, after you've killed Morocco and got Tunis and got all of this land certified under your rule, well, congratulations, you're still probably going to be weaker than Spain or Castile, the power from this area. And after you've basically come from behind 3 times in a row, only then will be able to actually go ahead and restore Al-Andalus and claim your victory in this achievement. Quite the challenge, best of luck, you're going to be suffering the whole time. But okay, I will be honest, I did save the worst for last. And this is a pun, and a very painful pun for anyone that attempts to attempt it. And all I will say is, best of luck, you really shouldn't. Because at the number 1 slot, we have an orange monopoly. As the County of Orange, own or have a subject own every location that produces dyes. Alright, okay, so let's begin with your nation, the County of Orange. It is not a good nation. You're broke. I think you've got to this point, you have no money. I mean, news at 9 at this point, right? And your military is seen better days. You start the game with a rural location producing some wines, but hey, at least you're in Europe and you have 20-odd thousand pops. That's neat. However, you are right on the border with France, which in the current patch of EU5, and in fact, let's be honest, for most patches of EU5, being this close to France is... yeah, you are really not long for this world. In fact, you're probably going to be so insignificant that France is not going to bother invading you. One of the French subjects is going to invade you and put an end to your misery. So best of luck with that. And it's not like you have any easier targets outside. You can go into Dauphine, maybe? That's an option. But yeah, your other neighbors are the Pope, good luck. Or again, Dauphine with 10 times the troop count. Good luck expanding or getting anywhere. So your early game is going to be brutal. But not only do you have to play your early game practically flawlessly just to have a chance of coming out with some kind of semblance of independence and secured existence, your end goal is, well, it's not a world conquest. That would be incredibly grindy and frankly unfun. No, it is a snaky world conquest where you have to go ahead and seek out and procure every single dye location in the game. And there's quite a few. Now, there's not as many as you probably think. Dyes are relatively rare as a trade good, but they're spread out quite well. That's not the raw resource map mode this is. Open it up, you see that we have to make a couple pit stops in Germany. We have to go into northern France and go into the Netherlands. We have to get ourselves established in the south and into a bit of Italy. We have to go ahead and just take random provinces pretty much everywhere. So we have to make a weird colonial empire just seeking those odd dye provinces. And again, there's not that many out there overall. Indeed, if we zoom out to the entire world map, well, there's quite a few dyes in India, so that's going to be a fun campaign, and get ready to colonize China, because not only do they have silk, they do have dyes as well, in some frankly really awkward positions, so yeah, good luck snaking it. Then again though, there really aren't that many dyes out there. I mean, for one, you just don't need to touch Australia, so that's neat, but certain areas are relatively dye heavy, so get ready to invade those. That all being said, it is very clearly a brutal open. I don't think there'll be any denying that. Best of luck surviving it. And after that, well, it's not a world conquest, but certainly quite the scavenger hunt, and hopefully you understand why I've given it the number 1 spot on this list. That all being said, I hope you found these entertaining, and while I would say don't attempt them, because most if not all are practically impossible, well, best of luck if you do, and make sure to flex them on my Discord if you manage to get a win. I'm not going to be enforcing Iron Man mode or anything, that's all up to you, gentleman's agreement to not cheat. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, with a special thank you to all my channel members, especially Ark, Soda, Lemon, Lord Zendikar, Nick Castan Hatan, Star72, The Awesome Rabbit, Best Pro Gaming, Grabo Flavia, Lebarule, W. Hayes Solve, Anthony35, Ace Napo, Conspiracy Pizza, Yukata, Danray, Marvi, Jack, Ryland, Stuart Allen, Andrew Black, Nebula, Zentronic, Toynet, and Aquapod.